I am Rebekah, and today's Hebrew vocab word is the word Israel. So Israel is the name of the bride of Yahshua. Of Yahshua. It is the 12 tribes that descended from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the people that were at the base of Mount Sinai or Sinai, however you say that, when they got the covenant, when they entered into this bride marriage type relationship with Yahshua at Sinai, when they said, yes, I will obey you, yes, I will keep your covenant. So Israel, we're gonna get on the same page today about what I mean when I say Israel, so that in all the future videos when you hear me say Israel, you will know what I mean. At least you will have learned what I mean. You may need to be refreshed on what I mean because you may have forgotten what I mean, but I'm going to tell you what I mean. So it is really important for you to understand who I'm talking about when I say Israel, because this is going to affect dramatically how you hear me. So for one, I am not talking about the state of Israel. I am not talking about Israelis. I am not necessarily talking about the Jews, and I'm not talking about Christians. That said, I am sure there are a lot of Israelites in the land of Judah, in the land of Israel. I'm sure that there are many Israelites among the Israelis and among the Jews. Also, I am sure there are a lot of Israelites in Christianity right now, and they just don't even know that they are Israelites yet. So I will unpack this more in a later video in another block, but to explain just a little bit right now so that you know what I'm talking about when I say Israel or Israel. For one thing, Christianity believes in a figurative Israel. They believe that the Christian church has replaced the Israel of the scriptures. So the Christian religion also teaches that they are going to be the ones who receive the blessings of Israel, even if they don't keep the covenant that Papa required Israel to keep to get those covenant blessings. This is crazy making. This is actually called replacement theology. False and anti-Semitic teaching. This is a wide path that leads to destruction because Israel has not been replaced, and you can't expect to receive covenant blessings, the covenant benefits of Israel, unless you are Israel doing things Yahweh's way. And you can't expect to get the covenant blessings of Israel if you're not keeping the covenant. Doing things Yahweh's way. No, I am speaking about a literal Israel, a literal nation that would receive covenant benefits and covenant blessings if they kept the covenant, and curses if they broke it. So yes, the word Israel used to only be used in reference to the entire nation of Israel. But do you remember after the reign of King Solomon, Israel was then divided into the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And then the northern kingdom was referred to as Israel. In fact, Yahweh uses the word Ephraim and Israel interchangeably to refer to the northern kingdom. So it is important to remember that the northern kingdom of Israel is made up of about 10 tribes. And the southern kingdom of Israel is made up of about 2 tribes. So a long time ago, during their punishment, the southern kingdom, which Jehovah referred to as Judah, went back home and they repented and they went back to rebuild the wall during the reign of Cyrus. Now the southern kingdom is known as the Jews. So several hundred years before that, in 722 BC, the northern kingdom of Israel was punished and they were sent into captivity for 390 years. It was prophesied by the prophet Ezekiel, foretold by Ezekiel. But because of their unrepentant hearts and the rampant sin of idolatry in the northern kingdom of Israel, Yahovah multiplied their 390 years of punishment 7-fold. And he scattered them into the nations to have their fill of their gods. This is a really sad story, but Papa said, Yahovah said that he wouldn't forget one of his lost sheep. None of those that he scattered among the nations would he forget. He said that he would call them out of the nations back to him during the last days. And it is the last days, and he is doing just that. So let's do some math here. I'm really bad at math, but let's I always have my husband do this because he's so good at this, but let's do a little bit math. So 390 years times 7, because the punishment was 390 years, and then he made it 7-fold, so times that by 7. 390 times 7, what does that equal? 2,730 years, so 2,730 years. This is the time, it's the time period known as the time of the Gentiles. So we're going to take the 2,730 years, subtract when we started, which was 722 BC, and what year do we get? 2008 AD. So 2008, just a few years ago, marks approximately the end of the time of the Gentiles. And when Yahovah began to ramp up his call for his people to come out of Babylon, to come out of the nations, his scattered ones to come back to him. It's happening in our lifetime. Isn't that so cool? We are living in such an amazing time. I just can't believe we get to live through this and watch this happen. I think this is so interesting. Listen to this. Matthew 15:24 says, and Yahshua is talking. He says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. And he's referring to the scattered sheep, the northern kingdom that was scattered into the nations for all that time. Yahshua said he came only for the lost sheep of Israel. Wow. The lost sheep of Israel have been lost for 2,700 years. And they're being called back. Says that in the last days he will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, and he will restore them and reunite them to become the whole house of Israel again. So don't worry, not many of us scattered ones who are coming back out to Jehovah out of the nations knows what tribe we're from, or if we're even from a tribe at all. Maybe we're not. Maybe we're just grafted in. Maybe we do have blood. Who knows? Only Papa knows. But Revelation does say that all of the bride, all of Israel, will enter into the city through one of the 12 gates. And those 12 gates are named after each tribe. So you have 12 tribes, 12 gates, and we must go through one of those gates. So maybe if we're not from a tribe, Yehovah will assign us a tribe. I don't know. But I wonder, it's kind of fun to think about. So I wonder what tribe I am from. kind of neat to think about. And if you study what the tribes look like today, where they are today, Collins is a great one to study on that. I'll try to put a link up next to this video so you can go look at his stuff, but that's fun to think about. But on this side of that event, anyone can come into Israel. Anyone can be grafted into the royal family through the blood of Yahshua and the keeping of the covenant that he came to restore. So I know that this is a really simple overview of this really big subject, and I wasn't intending for this video to go into all the depth of this subject that it needs. It's such a huge topic, and I plan on doing a little bit more of this later on in another block, of videos that I'm going to do for later. For now, Jim Staley has an amazing talk on this. It's called Identity Crisis, and you must watch it. It will literally change your life. And Batya Wooten has written books about the restoration of Israel and the two sticks, Judah and Israel or Ephraim, being put into the hands of Yehovah, and that he will use at the end of the age. So these are amazing resources that you really need to look into. It will change your life. It changed ours. So the point of this short video is simply to get us on the same page for a little bit, so that when you hear me talk about Israel, unless otherwise specified, I am not speaking of the figurative Israel that Christianity has invented, nor am I speaking about a default to the, well, I'm part of Israel because I am an Israeli or because I am a Jew. I'm not talking about that either. So now when you hear me say Israel, you will know that sometimes, yes, I'm speaking about the land of Israel, the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob by Yahweh, called Eretz Israel. Yes, sometimes I'm speaking about that. But most likely when I say Israel, I am talking about the northern kingdom, tribes that were scattered into the nations that are now coming out of the nations, that Yahweh is calling out of the nations as we speak. So I want you to practice saying it with me. Now, you can say Israel, or you can say Israel, and I'm sure that all of you can say Israel, so I'm going to have you just practice saying it a really pretty way, good way, Israel. I like saying it that way, so it's just plainly Israel. You kind of roll that R in the center. Israel. 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 So now for the application part of this video, which I love, because if you learn something and you don't apply it, there's no point in learning it. So I'm going to help you apply this word to your life right now. If you are feeling called, if you're feeling moved back to the Torah, back to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if you're a little bit like drawn to Jewish things, your brother Judah, maybe you feel like you want to repent and turn, or Teshuvah, remember that word? Teshuvah, back to Yahweh Elohim, the creator of the universe, then I am going to suggest that you are probably an Israelite. You're probably one of the scattered that are now being called out of the nations, out of Babylon, back to Yahuwah, back home. So if that's the case, then come home. Return to Yahuwah from the distant land, whatever distant land you are from, come home. Return to Yahuwah. The good news of the gospel is really that a way for us has been made to come back home, to come back to the covenant, to come back to being under the protection of this marriage type arrangement with Yahshua. So what you do with Papa's call is up to you. But if you hear him calling, then you must be one of the lost sheep that he is calling home. And that is so special. That is so wonderful. Come home. Respond to his call. Don't reject it. So if you are responding to his call and you are coming home, then let me welcome you. Welcome home, brother or sister. And do come introduce yourself to me at the great wedding feast of the Lamb. I would love to meet you. before we go. This is a harp. You probably figured that out. It's a beautiful. Not exactly like King David's, but it is a harp that came from Israel, and it was made in Israel as far as I understand, or maybe it was a kit that came from Israel. I don't rightly know, but it was given to my daughter. My husband now actually loves to play it. Especially on Shabbat, he'll just sit on the couch and just pick away. It's like a piano. I used to have piano lessons and I can't play this, but it's very beautiful and I want to learn how. So may you make some beautiful music for Yahovah and Yahshua. Bye-bye. Hi, I am Rebekah. Hi, I am Rebekah. I'm so happy to see you. Ah! I wish I could. I sound over enthusiastic, don't I? Okay, so it's been a long day and